Okay, so what in the world could a 700-year-old plague possibly have in common with the biggest weight loss drugs on the market today? Well, we're about to connect these two completely different points in time to uncover a really surprising truth about how things work.
It sounds like a bit of a riddle, doesn't it? But stick with me, because the answer reveals something really fundamental about how complex systems, I'm talking everything from ancient landscapes to our own bodies, react when a powerful force is suddenly introduced or, just as importantly, taken away.
So, our story is going to start way back in the 14th century with one of the most catastrophic events in all of human history and a huge misunderstanding about what actually happened next.
It's almost impossible to imagine, but the bubonic plague wiped out up to half of Europe's entire population. It was an absolute catastrophe, and as a result, huge areas of land were just abandoned. Fields, farms, entire villages, all left to go wild.
Now, you'd think, right, that when humans disappear, nature just comes roaring back, stronger and more diverse than ever. But when scientists looked at fossilized pollen from that time, they found something that completely flips that idea on its head. After the plague, instead of a big boom in plant life, diversity actually tanked. So, what on earth was going on? How could removing people from the picture actually make the landscape less diverse? It seems totally backwards. Well, the answer is in this idea called Anthropocene biodiversity. It basically challenges our romantic notion that the richest ecosystems are these untouched wildernesses. Turns out, a lot of species actually thrive on the constant disruption that humans create. Things like grazing animals clearing patches of grass or small-scale farming turning over soil. It creates openings for new things to grow. And this patchwork approach is everything. A landscape managed by people creates this beautiful mosaic of different habitats, all side by side. You've got a field next to a forest, next to a pond. But when you take that management away, one thing, like a really fast-spreading forest, can just take over, simplifying the whole system and crowding everybody else out. So here's the crucial takeaway from all this. When you remove a major intervention, it doesn't just rewind the system back to some perfect natural state. Nope. It completely changes the rules of the game, and often with consequences you'd never expect. And that exact principle, we're about to see it play out inside the human body. All right, let's hit the fast-forward button and jump from medieval Europe straight into modern medicine, where a whole new class of drugs is creating its own massive intervention. You've definitely heard of these. They're the so-called wonder drugs everyone's talking about. They work by mimicking a hormone, GLP-1, and they are incredibly good at helping people control their blood sugar and lose weight, mostly by making them feel full. But it turns out that's not all they do. So, researchers started hearing all these stories from patients, and they got curious. So they decided to dive into this massive database of health records from the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. They compared people taking these new GLP-1 drugs to people on other medications, and they found something pretty remarkable. Get this. The study found that people taking these drugs had a way lower risk of developing a new substance use issue. We're talking an 18% lower risk for alcohol, 20% for nicotine, and an incredible 25% lower risk for opioids. It looks like by hitting the brain's reward centers for food, the drugs were also turning down the volume on the desire for other addictive things. And this isn't just numbers on a spreadsheet. Doctors are hearing this stuff directly from their patients. A drug that was designed for one thing was having this powerful, totally unintended, and potentially life-saving effect on something else. It's a perfect example of a ripple effect. But just like our story with the Black Death, you have to ask the question, what happens when you take this powerful new intervention away? What happens when you stop taking the drug? This is a brilliant analogy. The drug isn't a cure, it's an active treatment. Think of it like you're holding your foot on the brake of a car that's parked on a really steep hill. The second you lift your foot, that car is going to start rolling back. And that is precisely what the data shows. When you look at multiple studies, you see that within just 1 year of stopping the medication, people tend to regain about 60% of the weight they lost. Now, it does seem to level off after a while, but that initial rebound is fast and it is significant. And this is where a really crucial question comes in. The weight people lose isn't just fat. A pretty big chunk of it, maybe up to 40%, can be lean muscle. The problem is, we don't really know yet if the weight that comes back is a healthy mix of muscle and fat, or if it's mostly just fat. Because if it's the latter, someone could end up with a higher body fat percentage than when they even started.
Okay, so let's bring it all home. Let's pull these two very different threads, a 700-year-old plague and a 21st century drug, together. The common thread here is the surprising power of unintended consequences, right? Removing a dominant force like farming led to an unexpected loss of diversity. Introducing a dominant force like a GLP-1 drug led to an unexpected reduction in addictive cravings. And in both cases, taking that intervention away doesn't just reset everything. It creates a whole new situation with a brand new set of rules. What this really teaches us is that complex systems are not simple machines, where A causes B. Whether it's a planetary ecosystem or the incredible ecosystem inside our own bodies, you can't just pull on one thread and expect only one thing to happen. It forces us to ask a much bigger question about any major change we make. What thread are we really pulling on, and what else might move with it?